Hello, everyone. Between the sound of sirens, surgical tools hitting steel trays, and jokes that seemed meaningless at the time, there was always a secret this show kept hidden. The more it made us laugh, the more it hurt. For over a decade, MASDH was more than a television series. It became the memory of a generation, a scar of war told through laughter. But time spares no one, and what happened to the cast after the spotlight faded was sometimes even more tragic than the stories they told on screen. Colonel Sherman T. Potter, portrayed by Harry Morgan at the age of 57, entered MASDH like a seasoned-old soldier carrying the weight of an entire lifetime of war. He arrived to fill a leadership void left by earlier upheavals, but Potter was never the kind of commander who ruled by noise or force. He represented the old-school military generation, a man who had served since World War I, survived countless battlefields, and carried iron discipline alongside a heart softer than anyone expected. As both chief surgeon and commanding officer of the frontline surgical unit, Potter quickly became the father figure of the camp, offering wisdom, stability, and quiet compassion in the middle of chaos. Harry Morgan was born on April 10, 1915, in Detroit, Michigan, and had already built a remarkable career long before taking on the role that would define him for millions. With more than 100 film and television credits, he became especially known for his work in westerns and major police dramas, earning a reputation as one of Hollywood's most dependable character actors. Morgan passed away on December 7, 2011, at the age of 96, from complications of pneumonia after years of declining health. His passing felt like more than the loss of an actor. For many, it marked the closing chapter of an entire television generation, built on warmth, humor, and humanity. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, portrayed by McLean Stevenson at the age of 45, became the first commanding officer of MASDH and one of its most lovable figures. Henry was never the kind of leader built for war. He felt more like an ordinary man thrown into military chaos, trying to survive it through kindness and humor. As the camp's commanding officer and surgeon, Blake constantly found himself caught between Hawkeye and Trapper's endless mischief, Klinger's wild schemes, and the rigid frustration of Frank Burns and Margaret Houlihan. His awkwardness, warmth, and humanity made him feel less like a superior officer and more like family, which made his story one of the most unforgettable in the series. McLean Stevenson was born on November 14, 1927, in Illinois, and began his career in radio and television writing before stepping into acting. His role as Henry Blake transformed him from a supporting performer into a national star in just a few seasons. Stevenson passed away on February 15, 1996, at the age of 68 after suffering a major heart attack caused by long-term heart disease and cardiac complications. His passing felt hauntingly similar to Henry Blake's own fate on screen, a gentleman gone too soon, leaving behind a space that could never truly be filled. Captain Trapper John McIntyre, portrayed by Wayne Rogers at the age of 39, became the perfect right hand to Hawkeye during the wildest early years of MASDH. Trapper was a brilliant surgeon from a comfortable middle-class background, a married man with children back home, yet he lived every day as if tomorrow might never come. What made him unforgettable was that rare mix of medical genius and rebellious instinct. Alongside Hawkeye, he formed the camp's most notorious troublemaking duo, constantly plotting against Frank Burns, bending military rules, and mocking the absurdity of war itself. Together, they gave the series much of its early chaotic heart. Wayne Rogers was born on April 7, 1933, in Alabama, and proved to be far more than just an actor. After leaving the series because of creative disputes and concerns that his role was being overshadowed, Rogers made a remarkable shift into business. What followed was a second career even more successful than his time on screen, as he became a highly respected investor and financial strategist. Rogers passed away on December 31, 2015, at the age of 82 from complications of severe pneumonia after years of declining health. His life became a rare example of someone who walked away from television fame and built an entirely different legacy beyond it. Major Frank Burns, portrayed by Larry Linville at the age of 33, turned one of television's most disliked characters into an unforgettable symbol of satire in MASDH. Frank was the rigid, conservative major obsessed with discipline, convinced of his own superiority and quick to judge anyone who broke the rules. Though he was a surgeon, his skills were far weaker than Hawkeye's or Trapper's, making him the perfect example of a man lifted by the system rather than by talent. His secret and deeply toxic relationship with Margaret Houlihan fueled endless camp drama, while his constant battles of wit with Hawkeye made him the favorite target of jokes and schemes. Burns became the face of everything absurd about blind authority. Larry Linville was born on September 29, 1939 in California, and came into television with a strong classical theater background. His performance as Frank Burns made him famous across America, but it also became the role that defined and limited much of his career, as audiences struggled to separate the actor from the character's bitterness and incompetence. Linville passed away on April 10, 2000, at the age of 60, from complications of pneumonia after a long battle with lung cancer. It was a quiet and painful ending for a man whose talent helped shape one of television's sharpest portraits of ego, weakness, and misplaced power. Father Mulcahy, portrayed by William Christopher at the age of 40, brought the gentlest soul into the blood-soaked and bitterly humorous world of MACH. As the camp's Catholic priest, Mulcahy stood at the fragile intersection of faith and brutal reality. He did not heal with a scalpel like the surgeons around him. Instead, he healed through words, presence, and compassion. To Hawkeye, he was a listener. To Radar, a mentor. To Klinger, someone who understood pain too deep to explain. Time after time, Mulcahy was forced to witness death without the power to stop it, and that burden slowly deepened the quiet sorrow within him. He became the moral center of the camp, reminding everyone that humanity could survive even in war. William Christopher was born on October 20, 1932, in Illinois, and built his early career as a stage-trained comedian before becoming a television icon. After his success on the series, he continued acting but devoted much of his life to family and charity work, especially raising awareness for autism after his son was diagnosed. Christopher passed away on December 31, 2016, at the age of 84 from complications of non-small cell lung cancer, a disease that weakened him rapidly in his final years. His passing felt like the loss of one of television's purest voices of kindness. Major Charles Emerson Winchester III, portrayed by David Ogden Stiers at the age of 35, arrived in Season 6 of MACH like an entirely different force. He was not chaotic, foolish, or reckless. Instead, Charles was cold, proud, and deeply intelligent. A gifted surgeon from Boston's upper class, he was raised in privilege, shaped by elite education, and carried an unshakable belief in social status. From the moment he entered the camp, Winchester saw it as an insult to his class and talents. He kept his distance from Hawkeye and BJ, viewing them as crude and lacking refinement. Yet over time, beneath that arrogance, the audience discovered a man of surprising depth, pain, and hidden compassion. David Ogden Stiers was born on October 31, 1942 in Illinois, and trained at the prestigious Juilliard School before rising to fame on television. After his breakthrough on MH, he expanded his career into voice acting, and became one of the most recognizable voices in animation through the Walt Disney Company, classics like Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas. Stiers passed away on March 3, 2018, at the age of 75 after battling bladder cancer. His death marked the loss of one of the most refined and versatile performers of his generation, a man whose voice and presence carried elegance long after the cameras stopped rolling. Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, portrayed by Loretta Swit at the age of 34, became one of the most powerful character evolutions in the history of MACH. Margaret entered the story as the strict, steel-willed head nurse, deeply devoted to military order and discipline. Raised in a military family, obedience was part of her identity, and at first she stood firmly beside Frank Burns, forming a rigid wall against Hawkeye and Trapper's chaos. But as the years passed, Margaret changed more than almost anyone else in the camp. Beneath the tough exterior, viewers saw a woman shaped by loneliness, sacrifice, and the constant struggle to prove herself in a world dominated by men. What began as satire slowly became one of the show's deepest portraits of strength and vulnerability. Loretta Swit was born on November 4, 1937, in New Jersey, and built her foundation in stage acting before becoming a national television icon. Her performance as Margaret earned her 2 Primetime Emmy Awards and transformed her into one of the defining images of strong women on American television. In her later years, Swit remained active in animal rights advocacy and charitable work, though her health gradually weakened with age. She passed away on May 30, 2025, at the age of 87, at her home in New York City from natural causes. Her death marked the end of a remarkable journey, closing the chapter on a woman who helped redefine what a female military character could be on television. Captain Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce, portrayed by Alan Alda at the age of 36, became the irreplaceable soul of MH. Hawkeye was a brilliant surgeon from Maine, raised by a doctor father and taught how to save lives long before he understood what war could destroy. That contradiction shaped everything about him, a healer trapped inside a machine built for killing. Hawkeye fought back the only way he knew how, through humor, sarcasm, and rebellion. Every joke he made was more than comedy. It was armor against the madness around him. Beneath the wit was a man carrying unbearable emotional weight, forced to patch up broken bodies while watching war tear apart the human spirit. Alan Alda was born on January 28, 1936, in New York, the son of a stage comedian, and grew up surrounded by backstage lights and performance. His work on MASH transformed him into one of the most powerful television stars in America, earning multiple Emmy Awards and cementing his place as a cultural icon. But his life was never without hardship. In 2015, Alda was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a challenge he chose to face publicly with remarkable honesty and grace. Now at 90 in 2026, he continues to write books, host podcasts, study science, and maintain light daily exercise, proving that even time cannot dim the mind of a man who once gave a generation its sharpest laughter and deepest sorrow. Corporal Maxwell Q. Klinger, portrayed by Jamie Farr at the age of 38, turned what could have been a simple running joke into one of the most beloved comic icons in MASH history. Klinger was a Lebanese-American corporal, best known for pretending to be insane, wearing dresses, wedding gowns, and creating endless outrageous schemes in hopes of getting discharged on psychiatric grounds. But beneath the comedy and chaos was a deeply intelligent, emotional, and fiercely loyal man. Over time, Klinger grew far beyond comic relief, becoming one of the emotional anchors of the camp, especially after Radar's departure. His humor masked fear, homesickness, and the quiet pain of surviving war one absurd day at a time. Jamie Farr was born on July 1, 1934 in Ohio, and built one of the most hard-fought careers in Hollywood. Before fame found him, Farr struggled through years of small roles and came close to giving up acting entirely. His breakthrough on MASH changed everything, making him a household name, and proving that persistence could outlast rejection. Off-screen, he became known for his humble nature, his love of golf, memoir writing, and a deep devotion to family. Now at 91, he remains one of the last living faces of that golden generation, carrying with him the memory of a time when laughter was sometimes the only weapon against the darkness of war. Captain BJ Hunnicutt, portrayed by Mike Farrell at the age of 33, entered MASH in Season 4 carrying an almost impossible burden, filling the void left by Trapper John and winning over an audience deeply attached to the past. But BJ was never meant to be anyone's replacement. He was a young surgeon from Mill Valley, California, a devoted husband and father ripped away from his family and thrown into the chaos of war. What defined him most was the ache of separation. His love for his wife Peg and his little daughter Erin became the emotional center of his character, making him profoundly different from Trapper's freer, more reckless spirit. BJ brought warmth, loyalty, and a quieter kind of pain, becoming Hawkeye's closest friend through the later years of the war. Mike Farrell was born on February 6, 1939, in Minnesota, and built his career through years of small roles and difficult stretches where steady work was hard to find. His breakthrough on MH changed everything, turning him into one of television's most respected faces. Beyond acting, Farrell became deeply involved in humanitarian causes, political activism, and social justice work, shaping a legacy far beyond Hollywood. Now at 87, he lives a quieter life, spending much of his time writing memoirs, reading history, and supporting charitable organizations. He remains a rare example of an artist who turned fame into purpose, carrying the same conscience off-screen that made BJ unforgettable on it. Corporal Walter "Radar" O'Reilly, portrayed by Gary Berghoff at the age of 29, became one of the most innocent and beloved characters in television history through MACH. Radar was the young farm boy from Iowa, carrying the wide-eyed innocence of someone who never fully belonged in the brutality of war. What made him unforgettable was his almost supernatural intuition. He always seemed to know what was coming before anyone else did, as if the war itself had taught him how to hear the invisible tremors beneath everyday life. To the camp, Radar was more than a clerk. He was its pulse, its messenger, and in many ways, its last piece of untouched innocence. Gary Berghoff was born on May 24, 1943, in Connecticut, and carried a real-life challenge few viewers ever noticed. He was born with a congenital condition affecting his left hand, something he carefully concealed throughout much of his acting career. That quiet resilience mirrored the vulnerability he brought to Radar. After leaving the spotlight, Berghoff stepped away from the constant pace of Hollywood, choosing a more private life focused on painting, wildlife preservation, and family. Now at 83, he remains one of the last living symbols of a gentler kind of television storytelling, a face that still reminds audiences of a time when innocence could survive, even in the middle of war. Captain Oliver Harmon, Spearchucker Jones, portrayed by Timothy Brown at the age of 35, brought a strong and confident presence to the earliest days of MACH. Spearchucker was a gifted neurosurgeon with a sharp mind and the kind of quiet authority that allowed him to stand shoulder to shoulder with Hawkeye and Trapper in both skill and judgment. With a background rooted in elite education and athletic discipline, he carried himself with calm precision, offering a different kind of strength inside the chaos of the camp. Though his time on the series was brief, he represented intelligence, dignity, and professionalism in a world constantly unraveling. Timothy Brown was born on February 24, 1937, in South Carolina, and before acting, he built a remarkable career as a professional football player for the Philadelphia Eagles. That rare path from the football field to Hollywood gave him a natural toughness and authenticity on screen. In his later years, Brown faced a quiet and painful battle with dementia and age-related neurological decline, a tragedy that echoed the struggles many former athletes endure. He passed away on April 4, 2020, at the age of 82, from complications related to progressive dementia and overall physical decline. His legacy remains a rare blend of athletic power and artistic grace, remembered by those who saw him in both worlds. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this journey. Time may have carried away many of these familiar faces, but the memories they left behind still endure. Their laughter, their pain, and the stories they gave us remain part of something larger than television now. They became pieces of our own lives. Until we meet again in the next journey of remembrance, take care and hold on to the moments that still matter.